Okay, so I wanted to start off a bit strong with a more easy character to develop my confidence. And so I decided to go with a cartoon character from Steven Universe, Lapis Lazuli. So I did need to practice her face a bit. So this is actually my second attempt at Lapis. And I say that she's recognizable, so that's a win. Next, I start drawing some Pokemon, Squirtle and Piplup. Uh, there are a lot of Pokemon, and there are a lot of water Pokemon, so I try to hone in and just pick two starter Pokemons. So, very recognizable Squirtle and nice and easy Piplup. Okay, so the next character I decided to sketch is Sailor Mercury, aka Ami Mizuno. In the English dub, she also goes by Amy Mikono or Amy Anderson, which I didn't know. So I haven't really watched Sailor Moon enough to know like the plot, but I do have some very early childhood memories of watching the show. Now, some series that I have watched like almost every episode would be Teen Titans and Young Justice League. So I had to put two of the Aqualads from these shows, Garth from Teen Titans and Kaldor from Young Justice. So, another intellectual property that I'm not as familiar with is Witch, but I remember them having elemental power, so I decided to add them. But it turns out I should have done a little bit more research or at least double check my search because I ended up making a big mistake. But more on that later. Now, this character is Jinbe from One Piece. I am now finally at the season or arc where we meet this character, so yeah, I still have a long way to go with One Piece. Okay, so the next character I decided to draw was Katara from Avatar The Last Airbender, and I felt a lot more comfortable drawing Katara, so I decided to go with a little bit more of a dynamic pose. I even drew her with some water bending just to like push myself out of my comfort zone. And then I decided to go back to my comfort zone, drawing Giyu Tomioka from Demon Slayer. He is the water Hashira. And I also added Sakonji Urokodaki. He is the trainer of Tomioka and Tanjiro, and he is the former water Hashira from Demon Slayer. Now, I wanted to add a little bit more anime and try to look for a character with water powers from My Hero Academia. Um, I found Masaki Mizushima. He is also known as Normal Hero Manual or Nomaru Hero Manuaru. Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry. And finally, I have Water Girl from the game Fire Boy and Water Girl. Okay, now that we're done with the sketching, we can now go to the fun part, which is the coloring, and the not so fun part, which is line art. Now, I did have some trouble with both of these things, but I think I learned a lot during this whole process. So, for Aqualad or Caldor, I think I had some problems with the line weight, like making which lines more thicker and more thinner to emphasize that. Like that's the part that I kind of did not achieve, and my reference photo did not have any line art, so I think I just didn't know what to do. Um, Basically, I just really don't like his hair. For Lapis Lazuli, the coloring was a little bit the difficult process just because Lapis is all blue, so being limited to alcohol markers or just even like traditional art materials was kind of hard, like balancing staying true to her original color scheme and like making sure all the colors still go well together. But I think I did enough with what I had. So yeah, it's it's okay. I think for the future, I probably will try to not be as strict with being true to the original and actually prioritize color harmony than being color accurate. Now, if I had a hard time with Lapis, Garth or this Aqualad gave me a really hard time with the colors, mainly because in this scene he's underwater and the hues or the saturation of his color scheme is like very different than what I'm used to, and I didn't know how to convey that, so I did have to go over him a couple times. For Sailor Mercury, I was able to get a tip for drawing line art, and basically it's to not just copy the initial sketch. Like, you're not just gonna copy line per line what your original sketch is, but you're gonna redraw the whole drawing as if there were no lines at all. They're just more of a guide rather than the drawing itself. And using that technique and really looking at the original reference, I think I was able to get way closer to the reference or the art style of Sailor Moon than my first initial sketch. And that is not necessarily always the goal for artists, but I feel like for the purposes of this spread, that was kind of what I was going for, just to like, try to challenge myself to like replicate all these art styles. For coloring Sailor Mercury, it was a little bit more straightforward except for her hair. Now, while I was looking at all the references for her, each reference I found, her hair was a little bit of a different color, so I didn't know what her true hair color was, so I just like ended up mixing a bunch of blues and blue greens and using acrylic markers. So almost all the colors that I found are kind of in her hair. Okay, for Katara, I really enjoyed drawing her. I felt that this was like challenging but in a good way. Like, it's a challenge but it's achievable, and I was able to use that tip again with the line art. I was able to catch all the details that I missed, and coloring her was pretty fun. The only thing that I kind of wish I could change is that I wish she was bigger, because I had some difficulty with creating the details on her face. But other than that, I really like drawing Katara. Maybe another thing is that I probably would like look up how to draw water with like the art materials that I have. But it's kind of okay, like if you look at it from a distance. So overall, I'm pretty happy with Katara. Okay, I do kind of regret outlining the Pokemon, but because they're kind of cuter without them, but you never know until you actually put it on the paper, and that's sometimes a gamble. Um, what I don't regret is the line art for Urkadaki and Giyu. I feel like at this point I was really getting the hang of the line art, and I really like how it all turned out, especially after the coloring. So, like I said, I really like the coloring for these characters, especially Urukadaki's mask. I feel like the shadows like turned out really well, and I'm really happy with it. Now for Giyu, I did have a little bit concern over his haori, or the pattern on his haori, but after like just actually like looking at it, it's actually not as complicated as I thought it would be, and it turned out pretty good as well. So again, this part of the spread I am pretty happy with. A little quick check. At this point, I think I got really good momentum going, so it's pretty straightforward from here, the line art and the coloring, and overall, I say he's pretty normal. The same thing kind of goes for Water Girl and Jinbe, since they were on the more simple and smaller side. They went pretty easily, and even the alcohol marker bleeding worked in my favor because it kind of fits Jinbe's vibe. Okay, now on to my big mistake. To any WITCH graphic novel or the Witch graphic novel fans out there, I am truly sorry that this mistake even happened. Uh, Instead of drawing Irma there, who is the witch with water power or the guardian with water power, I ended up drawing Will Van Damme. So yeah, I'm also very sorry to myself because first, the initial sketch was pretty good, and by the time I had to redraw the proper character, I was losing it. So I ended up just deciding to draw a different character entirely. I chose Kya from Avatar: The Legend of Korra. She is the daughter of Katara and Aang. Hopefully, that's not a spoiler. Uh, anyway, yeah. Now, I guess all that good vibes from the initial spread is like gone at this point because even drawing Kya, I had to like draw her twice. Um, Mostly because I didn't like the initial paper that I chose. It was kind of thin and it didn't hold the alcohol markers well. And so I chose a different, more sturdier paper, and it ended up okay. I was able to salvage this part, and I was determined to give Irma there another shot in the next pages. So overall, it was salvage, but art really is a love-hate relationship, and we still choose to do it. So we have no one, or I have no one to blame but myself. So again, overall, the spread was saved, but still, it was not easy to get there. For the background, I kind of wanted to showcase the personalities of each of the characters. It worked for some of the characters. For some, I don't know if it ended up kind of clashy or just random colors, but maybe I should plan this a little bit more next time or be comfortable keeping things simple. Okay, so I'm not completely done with this spread. I think I want to go in with some acrylic markers, but I don't know exactly what I'm gonna do, so I'm gonna leave it for now and think about it more. So I'm just gonna continue to the next spread and come back later. Okay, so here I am drawing Moana. I ended up scrapping her mainly because she doesn't have water powers. She kind of just talks to the water, which is its own sentient being. Now here is Rani. She is from the Pixie Hollow series. Um, I also draw Silver Mist from the Tinkerbell movies. And lastly, I draw Layla, also known as Aisha, depending on which version of the Wings series you watch. Now, I ended up scrapping this spread because I didn't like the composition and like the size difference of the characters. And I also wanted to draw them in a more dynamic pose because they're like magical fairies. I wanted to like showcase that. Using the back of the page, I decided to draw Percy Jackson from the Disney Plus show, and I had to sketch him a bunch, but finally decided on using this kneeling pose, and we have Percy Jackson. So going back to that first spread, I just was so bothered with Aqualad's face and just while trying to fix it, and I decided to go with a more purple just to emphasize that he's underwater down in the depths and there's like almost no light. Um, what I do want to share though is there were big gaps in this spread. I started the sketching process somewhere in February, and the coloring and the next spread were spread out in the months of June, July, and a little bit of August. So I just wanted to share that to you guys to know that this is not like an overnight or like a 2 night thing. This was me trying to find time and even just like the motivation to draw, and everyone has their own pace when it comes to art. So I just thought you guys should probably know that, just so that if you see something like this, it's not done quickly, and for some people it's actually pretty hard to keep drawing consistently. I just wanted to say, if you relate to that, you're not alone, and just create art at your own pace. Using some paper from an old sketchbook, I started to draw Aisha or Layla, depending on where in the world you watch Wings Club. Um, Using a different paper really helped loosen me up because I wasn't afraid to make mistakes just because I knew like it's not gonna ruin the whole sketchbook. So me and my sister, along with some of my cousins, we would do this thing where we would choose our favorite characters for things like Disney princesses, fairies, cute anime girl stuff. For Winx Club, mine was Aisha and Musa. So I still remember the first episode where she was introduced and she insisted to like drive the motorcycle herself instead of like just riding behind one of the boys. I don't know why I remember this, it's just something that stuck with me all this time. So for Rani, there are two interesting things about her. One is that there is a Mandela effect going on where people, me included, remember her as Rainy. I legit remember her name being Rainy, but trying to erase that now, her name is Rani. The second thing about her is she is a fairy without wings. I looked into this recently, and she basically sacrificed her wings in order to submerge underwater to like resolve this crisis going on in Pixie Hollow. So she is kind of badass, but also she's still happy because as a water fairy, she always wanted to know what it's like to go swimming because fairies can't get their wings wet, so at least she's a happy water fairy. And I really love that for her. Now, for the Tinkerbell movies, my favorite character was Silver Mist, mostly because I really, really wanted to be a water fairy. Now, I also like her character design, I like her personality, like, she's a little bit ditzy, but she's so sweet, and her humor is on the cornier side, but I like that about her too. Now, what I didn't like about her was how hard she was to draw. I had a really hard time. Silver Mist has like kind of weird face proportions. Her pixie features were really hard, like how big her eyes, how small her nose is, and like the weird shape of her head, and the amount of volume of her hair. Like it doesn't make sense, but I just had a hard time. So in the end, I decided to scrap this Silver Mist and try again. Now, for Rani, I also had a similar problem with her face. I just couldn't get it right, and it bothered me so much that I kept going over and over her face again and again until finally I decided to redraw it from scratch and just paste it on her body. So I am finally happy with this version. Okay, we finally reached the part of this video where I finally redeem myself when it comes to Irma Lair and Silver Mist. So I had to sacrifice a few pages from a sketchbook that had a little bit better quality of paper, and it was so worth it. Again, being on a different sheet of paper instead of being in the main sketchbook really helped with my anxiety in the sketching phases, and the quality of paper really helped with the coloring in terms of the alcohol markers blended really well together with this paper, and even like the details with the color pencils were a little bit more easier. And finally, all the other attempts of drawing Silver Mist probably gave me a lot of practice in drawing her, and I finally have results that I'm happy with. Now, I am very satisfied with how Irma Lair turned out. I like the final results, but I am still feeling a little bit guilty, a little bit embarrassed about the whole mix up. So, it is on my to do list to go to the library and to borrow the graphic novel or comic book about this series so I can learn more about the characters and do them justice in the future. And who knows, I might even like the series and have a new fandom. Okay, finally I get to work on the wings of my fairies. I use watercolor paper and some wash paint. I also use alcohol markers and color pencils. The color pencil process was really tough on my wrist. I'm a little bit afraid that I might have gotten carpal tunnel, so fingers crossed that it's not that, and I'm gonna be a little bit more careful with my posture and hand movements. So it turned out pretty though. So there's that. Now for the background, I really messed up with the background on this one. I regret putting the paints on. I wish I just stuck with the color pencils. It kind of looked better then. But I'm at the point where I cannot redo another page again. So I just decided to add one more character here. This is Suigetsu Hozuki from Naruto. I am a really casual fan of Naruto. I've watched a few episodes of the first season. I watched a few of the movies. I just like try to like YouTube what happened at the end, and that is the extent of my Naruto knowledge. I am familiar with most of the characters, but this guy, he has water power, so he's on the spread. And now I am finally committing to putting all the characters down. And this space right here, I added another Steven Universe character, Aquamarine, and I was so tired, like I couldn't even be bothered. I was just like, whatever I get on, that's what I get on, and like, there she is, Aquamarine. Now, Again, I am trying to salvage this background because it is so horrible, but I'm also at the point where I cannot be bothered and just I'm gonna accept it. Now, the next character is Barbara from Genshin Impact. Now, the reason why I decided to go with Barbara is because if you ever decide to play this game or you already played this game, Barbara is a sure character. You will get her, you will get to meet her. And that is basically it because there are so many good characters and I could not decide on any of them. I would want to draw all of them and I do not have the capacity to do that right now. So, Barbara it is. Now, for the drawing part, I wanted to keep things a little bit more simple. I just wanted to draw one character and make them the main focus of the page because I'm trying to learn from my previous mistakes and I think the composition's a little bit better. I also wanted to simplify the background a bit more but still give her her personality. So I ended up with this really cute pastel color palette and it still showed off her powers and her personality, so I'm really happy with it. And I think that going forward, I would like to stick more to this simplified version and maybe just stick with one or two characters per page. That way, they can really shine on their own. Okay, so I'm finally done with this little challenge. Now I've counted 21 different characters with water powers, and I do kind of need a little bit of a break from this sketchbook, so I might take a while before I can get back into this. This sketchbook I plan mostly for fan art, but I can show you some other sketchbooks that I'm working on in the meantime, and I do have a sketchbook tour that I need to film. But when I do go back to the sketchbook, I will most definitely do firepower characters. So if you have any recommendations, I would love to see them. Now, this spread or these characters, it did take me around 6 months to finish. So hopefully next time it would be a little bit more easier. I also kind of want to focus more on developing my own art style and like not copying the reference as much, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, so thank you so much for watching. Again, are there any characters that I miss with the water powers? Maybe I can do a part 2. I would love to hear anything from you guys, so thank you for watching. See you soon. Bye.